everybody. It is me. It is the Cyber Warrior. This is Cyber Warrior Studios. And we have an amazing episode of Security Happy Hour planned for you today because that's what you're all here for. And it is Veterans Day weekend, so of course I'm going to have a fellow veteran on. That's just how I do things. Now, saying that, stick around for about another 10 seconds and I promise we'll be right back. And we're back. And yes, with me this evening, I have the one and only Natalie Baker. She's been on this show before. She is the host of her own podcast. So, Natalie, give us the rundown. How you been?
Been doing good. Been busy.
How's Record Related doing?
Record Related is going well. We are actually back with new episodes. Continuing the mission in a new way. Actually using some Calendly like you told me to do before. So, trying to get some things automated out so that it's not as much of a struggle to maintain.
Yeah, it can be a pain. And for me, one of the hardest parts is finding guests. Just because I don't want to put out a public link of oh yeah, just go here and sign up. But I don't want to have to constantly come up with a new link and send it to people. So it's I have one that's technically public. I just send it and I'm like, hey, if you know someone to sign up, go have them click here and sign up. But yeah, things are going to get interesting. Things are getting interesting. A lot of things going on in the cyber realm, and with it being Veterans Day, or Veterans Day weekend, rather, because Veterans Day is on Monday. I'm kind of curious as to what you think the impact of, our current things that have gone on this past week with the election and everything like that. How do you think that's going to affect the cybersecurity industry, especially within the military going forward? Because as we both know, cyber and IT within the military and government as a whole has really been very, it has its ups and downs, let's just say.
And see, here's the thing is even around the last election, you saw this too. I feel like people are afraid of what they don't know. So they don't necessarily especially politicians, they don't necessarily understand the cyber aspect and everything that we talk about and we tell them all about. So they don't necessarily understand it. So I think that as you get closer to that time frame of election, people are afraid of impacting organizations and losing votes. So I think that you see it kind of declines in certain areas in cyber, and then it will probably start to rise again afterwards because policy is going to continue to be written towards these cybersecurity goals that the federal government has in mind, right?
Yeah, and between CMMC and a few other things, I don't know. Do you feel that regulation and policy within the government has kept up with the changes within IT and cybersecurity as a whole?
No. We do our best, right? Okay, so the classic example is that we have such outdated standards, even in FedRAMP plan, you have such outdated standards that you're looking at when you're looking at the standards that we have to adhere to, you're looking at legacy systems, you're looking at, on-prem systems. And a lot of times we're trying to take those on-prem requirements and move them and finagle them into real world cloud, how it actually is going to work, and making it functional and kind of trying to do our best to meet the requirements in a cloud world.
Right.
So,
I think one of the craziest ones I've seen recently is one of our clients. They're the GRC team they work for our company, but basically the standards they were going through, it said malicious code something, and I'm like, so malware? You want to know how we're detecting malware? Why are we making this harder than it needs to be? Call it a virus, call it malware, call it a worm. I don't care. Just why are we putting new names on things? It's freaking malware. The same is the same is the same. Why are we doing this? And it's well, how do we detect malicious codes and programs? With our EDR that has antivirus baked in? What answer do you want from me on this one?
But if you were a programming company, if you were a software writing company, though, you might have a different mechanism to use
Mhm.
to actually detect malicious code. It wouldn't necessarily be your EDR. You could have people that actually write malicious code or inject malicious code into what your code is. So you would need other tools like other scanning tools as well. So
Yeah,
like I mean, I do get it 'cause they're trying to span a whole lot of distance, but some of the regulations you get down to, and it's like, okay, well, what is this actually meant
yeah,
for? Like, what is this type of compliance actually meant for? And when you're looking at it and you're like, okay, well, we're looking at something very specific. There's usually very much it's not the same as like your corporate systems. It's very secluded. It's a very
right,
secluded environment and stuff like that. So like we don't have to look at all the same controls that we would have to look at if we were also including the corporate environments and stuff like that.
right, right. And everybody in chat, yes, it is good to be back. It is good, Jack, to see you here again. Space tacos as always. Infinite improbability AI. How is a new one. So how you doing? But it is good to see everybody. It is good back be back. It's week 2 for me of coming back. And my wife kind of looked at me today when I was like, "Yeah, I got my show tonight." She's like, "You're doing your show?" I was like, "Babe, I started last week." Like, yes, I'm doing my show. We're back in the thick of things. We're gonna keep it pushing. Um, but yeah, it's crazy how regulations and stuff like that work because I feel like especially within the government, and I think this is why attackers are always ahead of the 8 ball beyond just the defensive mechanisms that are hard to put in place because of cost and technology and things like that. It's companies want to abide by regulation and policy, and they either do it in a check the box manner, which sucks, and the policies will never, the regulations will never be up to date with enough detail to check the box and be secure, or they go all out, but it's still abiding by the regulation with no additional policy. So they're like, all right, let's meet all these and really stick it and nail the landing and everything else like that. And you end up with cool, but now that regulation doesn't change for 4, 5, 6 years. And so by the time a new one comes out, you've advanced your technology, but not in the way to really be there and really kind of meet that standard and do it to the point of what's needed because you're
Yeah.
meeting the old standard.
So, and to caveat this, like you have to think of any of these standards as being like legal documents almost, and how legal documents are written. Generally, you have a law that kind of governs over like
Right.
some type of regulation or whatnot, right? The regulation's a lot easier to change than the actual law itself is. So it's easier to amend the document, and they kind of all like interlap, and one will govern the others. And so what you see is happening is that it takes a while for the overarching governing document to
Right.
kind of get updated as much, but it's in those special publications where you'll see a lot of those updates, and a lot of them have been really, really great at taking, something that was meant for an on-prem solution or an on-prem world and really kind of bringing it into that new age. So in those special publications, that's kind of where you will see those updates being really focused at.
But even then, and so I'm going to touch on that where Jack says regulation is never going to be secure as it's always a bare minimum, which is very true. Regulation is always the bare
Yep.
minimum of like, hey, don't leak data. Well, no shit, homie. Like, I know what I'm not supposed to do. But it's more so for me, even with the shift of on-prem to cloud, I think it was a lack of knowledge before organizations did it. And by that I mean the cloud is a shared security model, meaning the physical security you no longer had to worry about, but you still needed a firewall. You still need network security groups. You still need all the other underlying foundational measures in place. And so that regulation still could have helped change the terminology a bit to meet either Azure, AWS, GCP, whatever, because heaven forbid. that we have the same terminology across the board for all platforms. We got to give it our own spin on things. But the premise, and this is why I say networking foundations, operating system foundations, and IT in general are an absolute necessity for cybersecurity. Because if you understand those, then it doesn't matter where the information lies or what you're trying to secure. Foundationally, you will need the same things. A secure network. Well, how do I secure my network? Well, firewalls, network security groups, whatever you need. Um, Role-based access controls and or some other form of access control. Things of that nature. Administrative control. Domain admins, enterprise admins, regular users, help desk users, things like that. So the premise is still there. The implementation has changed on how it's implemented, but the underlying foundations still exist even in the cloud. Unfortunately, especially with AWS in the S3 buckets, and I'm sure there were some Azure ones as well, but S3 became the huge one that people targeted because it was um, public by default. Is they didn't understand how to change things to private. It's kind of the equivalent of like our own personal data. When you look at Facebook updating things or what have you, all of a sudden now you're sharing all this data that you were like, what? No, I shouldn't have to opt out. I should have to opt in. Like,
Yeah.
so same concept. Like I should be able to opt into making my S3 bucket public, which now they did change by default, if I'm not mistaken. But some companies still do that, and then some dummy will put an entire API key list in their S3 cloud and be like, "Oh yeah, it's public. Go ahead, you're good." Like,
Have fun.
no,
We're secure. We do security here. Um,
right?
Infinite Probability actually brought up a good point. He said manufacturers are scrambling to get CMM certified. They keep pushing it off, not knowing how serious it can get. And I think that's like a very good point that he makes is like they really don't realize how, and it's so weird because like you'll see it happening around like election times. People like are like, oh, who needs compliance, and then as soon as elections are over and like they start to like really crack down on things again, they're like, no, we need compliance, oh no, oh no. And you kind of notice that like that trend happening all throughout, and it's so frustrating because you're just like, well, just because like right now nobody's making big strides or you're not seeing a lot of news breaks about somebody not being CMMC, you are seeing news breaks of like PSU or I think it was Georgia Tech that like are getting hit with not being compliant with the regulations and getting hit pretty hard in regulate
Yeah,
or court. So like, I mean, it can get serious, not to sit there and say like it's gonna get serious that fast, but like I mean, you only have a couple years and everybody's trying to wait till the last minute. And some companies, like I think the companies that it's I've heard a lot of people say like, oh, it was meant for like the MSSP type of company so that we can make sure that they're secure too, because they can say we're doing security, we do security, but like, how are we actually proving that they're doing their security? But like most MSSPs are actually doing their security because like to them, they know that if they get hit with like ransomware or they are the culprit of a breach, guess what? They're not going to have business much longer. So a lot of them
right.
were already doing that, and now it's like it's those manufacturing companies that really kind of need to get with the times and realize that, like, hey, we need to take this seriously.
I guess I don't know. I guess my question would be because to me, manufacturing doesn't fall under CMMC is a government compliance regulation, correct?
Yeah.
So it falls more in line with like things like FedRAMP, like it would be those type of organizations that need CMMC.
So I would say CMMC is a government contractor. So it could be like an MSSP that's providing some type of for another government contractor. There are definitely manufacturers out there that have government contracts that are manufacturing like some really high tech stuff, right? Like that we like science that has been like developed that we wouldn't want a foreign nation to get a hold of and
Right.
stuff like that. So, like, you still have those that they're still considered government contractors. They need to protect the data that they have that is considered secret or classified or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking in general because To me, CMMC has to deal more with government agency versus not necessarily the agencies within the government, just agencies that deal with the government. Where we still have FedRAMP also, so that whole like
So
conglomeration of policy and regulation will always. That's why I'm not a GRC person because that shit confuses me.
and I could definitely, somebody could fact check me in the comments on this if I'm wrong, but from what I've gained and the experience that I've gained in FedRAMP, what I've seen is it's generally the software type, like your SaaS, your infrastructure as a service or your platform as a service. Somebody is offering some type of like software that,
Right,
usually that's what I've seen is like somebody's offering a piece of software and getting that up to federal regulated standards so that,
right,
the government can, a government agency, because it's not just like DoD agency, you're talking any federal government agency. Whereas like um a third party company that works for somebody who has to be FedRAMP should still be CMMC certified, or at least 171, abiding to 171, because they still might have confidential, unclassified information in their systems. So that's really what it comes down to, is the classification of the type of data.
okay, yeah, because well, CMMC is NIST, so that like especially 2.0, 2.0 went full NIST and was like, hey, we're just gonna take NIST, put a new name on it, and here you go.
Yeah, yeah, no. It's so funny because like Rev 2, I knew that was coming. Like it was a no-brainer once you read through what CMMC was in comparison to like NIST, like what you read through 171 and then compared it to NIST 853, and you're like, okay, so now I'm kind of starting to see the differences between the two, but the
Yeah,
similarities. And what they're doing is making it very similar to the 853 standard, just watering it down a bit.
yeah, and for me, it'll still always come back to now. I'm not. Thankfully, the client we have now, they do, especially working with a director and stuff. They're like, no, we want to be as secure as possible. Like, why are things not working? Let's get them fixed. Let's implement all the things and do it correctly. Um, so that has helped. Now, unfortunately, I had no say in the technology stack or the security stack that they were using, so it's making my life a lot harder. I.e., just for awareness, I despise Microsoft. Like Azure, like that Defender and Sentinel can go fly a kite. I despise them. But I know a lot of people love them and they stick by them, and good on you. I just can't stand the way they do analyst type things. So like their dashboards and things like that. Like, oh no, you got to go to the right workbook and do this. I'm like, you realize this is as a sim engineer and as a sim person, I'm used to just going to the UI, the website, and saying, oh, here's all my information right here that I need to know. Here's all the events. Here's what triggered. Here's number. I should not have to like click through a million things to get and find what I need. I should not have to custom make it. It's right there. Now, if I want to do a dashboard, I'm like, hey, I want events, and then I want lockouts or failed logins. That'd be one thing. Oh, nay, nay. It's hey, here's the trend of your alarms. Hey, don't you care about that? Like, I want to know what events were triggering. That's what I want to know. Oh, to do that, you need to go into the workbooks and look for that specific type of events that you're looking for. Mother, I, I don't want to do all that. I don't care where it came from. I just want to see what they are. But now, so that in asset management within Microsoft, as far as like Defender and stuff, it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna hold on to these assets for 6 months. My God, we run, Kubernetes and freaking scale sets. It's dead after a day. I could care less what information's on it. I should be able to set, hey, after a week, nuke it. It's no longer in my system. No, no, you get 6 months worth of data permanently. That
Regardless,
asset
whether
could
you
be
want it or not.
stale for it could literally come up for a day, register within Defender, and then never come back up again. And it'll be like, hey, you still own this asset. What asset? Doesn't exist in Azure anywhere. Oh, but it's in Defender. So you're gonna be able to continue to see it and see that it doesn't pass any of the compliance checks. Bitch, I know it came up, did what it had to do, and shut down. I know this. How's it going to get compliance? Anything? We're just going to let you know that you have about 1,000 of these. No, dog. Like that type of stuff, I wish cloud would get better at recognizing scale set type operations, especially with the way Azure functions, where it is meant to, especially the kind of like the pay as you go infrastructure, like spin up and down all these different things. When you're looking at like virtual desktops, you can create a pool of AVDs where it's like, hey, pull it off of this, and this, and it's like up, down, up, down, up, down. I wish it could recognize, Defender would recognize that and be like, this is from a pulled set. We ain't even going to worry about. Once it's dead, kill it. Nix it. It's
Yeah.
gone. No longer matters. Um, but no, it's your own system. You would think they could do this. Oh, nay, nay, nay. You're going to sit there and look at that shit and wonder why it's been vulnerable for 6 weeks. Bitch, because it ain't been on for 6 weeks.
Yeah, yeah, and you see that happen a lot too when you're like looking at like dynamic instances where like you have a load balancer, and then
Yeah.
you'll just like see like all these AC2 instances spin up, and they're like, oh, we're like at full force, and then they spin down, they're like, oh, we lost the agent, and it's like, well, it's gone. The instance is freaking gone because it's no longer needed. Like it's
Yeah.
gone, man. Like we don't need it.
Shit. Eliza's here. What's up, Eliza? Good to have you in the. I don't think I've seen you in the chat in a while. Not since you've been on the show. Eliza's awesome. But no, I do. I think I, I wish that companies that develop cloud infrastructure and the security behind it, and this includes AWS because Amazon does the same shit. They don't account for those things. They don't account for dynamic instances and things that change rapidly. And so it's like, oh, you're completely out of compliance. So when you're looking at CMMC, when you're looking at FedRAMP, when you're looking at NIST or whatever, it's like, oh, we need to be compliant with all this. So we're going to implement within our vuln management tool NIST checks and CMMC. We're gonna implement it within Defender or Tenable or what have you. And it's going to come back and be like, hey, we scanned all this shit and you're out of compliance on like 8,000 systems. Because it just so happened that the day it scanned it, I needed all these scale sets that literally spin up and down rapidly. And it's like, they no longer exist. So I'm still within compliance. Like it still gets the same security measures. It's just depending on how long they're up, they may not be able to pull down full policy right away. It could take time. Like, and half of the shit doesn't report back for 12 to 24 hours with Microsoft. So, like, by the time it gets it and gets full policy, it never reports back complete because it's now dead. And you're like, I'm compliant, guy. I swear. Like, an auditor's going to come in and be like, hey, your vuln management system says this. And you're like, hey, it's wrong. What do you mean it's
Look
wrong?
at our inventory. Look at the inventory though. And there's ways of doing that through like data, like tagging, like using tags for different images and stuff like that, so that you can kind of track that a little bit better and kind of automate that out a little bit.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
And
it
they
is a
do. They
pain
tag a
that's
lot of it. I'm
not
not involved in.
natively knowing it, because
Yeah.
at this point we have AI and all that. Like, why can't we figure something out?
Because AI is trash right now.
Yeah.
Look, I know a lot of people that are sitting there. Actually, I had a conversation with Hacker Valley Studios before Chris Cochran left, because the AI conversation came up, and I said, you can't replace human intervention. Like AI is not at a point where it has emotion, where it has logic to really think through everything. We don't have true AI right now. We have machine learning, behavioral analytics, but true AI does not exist. Um,
Oh, wazoo, wazoo. I've
Yo,
heard
look,
that.
I will go, and we all know this. I am a huge Security Onion
On a bus.
fan, and
Yes.
it will have you push out wazoo. It will spin that shit up and give you a lap in the cloud, like anywhere you want it. Through Vagrant, I think they have a set of scripts. Definitely Azure and potentially AWS. So yes, um, damn it, AI!
The training
AI
shortage.
is not trash. We are just going through labor pains. Look, I'm just not I'm not a fan at the reliance that companies are putting on it. Again, it's not that it's bad. I think it could be used maliciously. Let's be fair. People have been able to convince Chat GPT to write malware.
Yep.
Now, it takes a little social engineering of the AI to do it, but it's possible. And so, with that being said, we are seeing we thought script kiddies were bad for the past how many years, where it was like, oh, you're just gonna get now you have AI making malicious scripts for script kiddies. They don't even have to go out and wait for somebody to create it. They don't have to wait on Metasploit or something like that. They could legitimately just say, hey, um, so if
Create
I
something.
wanted to do X, Y, and Z to detect it, like what would I need to be able to detect? And it would like write stuff out and you change a few things and it just works as a malicious script now. And you're just like, oh my God, you did not just do that.
Yeah, for me, it's the matter that so many people just rely heavily on AI, and it's kind of like Wikipedia way back in the day. Like, remember how like people would just like put whatever they wanted to in the Wikipedia search results? Like,
Dude, people still
you could
do
just
that.
edit them. I mean, yeah,
They
but
still
like,
do that to troll
it's
people. They will literally put in that people have died. Like
yeah,
legitimately change their death date. They're still alive, live and kicking. You see them all the time. Date of death. See, they were born in 1967. They died in 2001. What?
it's like, so now are we teaching our younger generations to go use with like AI as their research tool? Because that's like literally teaching them the opposite of critical thinking and letting a computer think for it. And that to me is the scariest part, but hey.
Well, let's be fair. The scariest part, and I've owned this. I've actually talked to quite a few people about it. And I will own this. When they talk about the iPad generation, so you're talking Gen Z and Gen Alpha. Now, I try to get my kids involved with football, involved with sports, wrestling, whatever, to be outside to go play. However, um, I was still a young parent. So when I started having kids, and even to this day, I'm only 37 years old. Like, if I want my me time, go play. Like literally, I ain't even kicking them out of the house. I'm like, go play on the Switch, go play on the. I don't care. Just I need about an hour just to myself, and I know you. If you break anything, so be it. It's just whatever. Um, as long as you're not breaking your brothers. Like, don't break any arms. I don't want life, limb, or eyesight. I'm not trying to go to the
We're
ER.
not going to the
We're not going to
hospital.
the ER. We're good. Um, So they will. My kids were raised, unfortunately, unlike my sister, who was like, "You have time limits." I was like, "Here's an iPad, go play." Worst mistake I could have ever made, because now when it's like, "Hey, we got football practice," but I've got this battle pass on Fortnite. I don't give a damn what you have. We're going to football, and they're like, "But no, let's go outside and play." But part of it is my wife. I love her to death. She's an amazing mother. But she's like, "Oh, our kids need to be watched," which I understand that mindset. But with where I live, I'm kind of like, let them go out and play. As long as they don't go in the street and get hit by traffic. At 9 years old, 7 years old, I was out with my friends. Like we would have to be at
I
the park. My
mean,
parents don't. No
the
adults
world
can be
has
found.
changed since then quite a bit, Derek.
That's what I'm saying though. Is like, but I'm still trying to get my kids. Like I got a huge wood line behind me.
Yeah.
Just you got to do a tick check when you come back in because I got a lot of deer that love to mate back there and have kids. So like I just But I find myself like, and I talk to my kids all the time. You, it's either Sweden or Switzerland. I always forget which. During school, during school itself. Hey, for recess, there's trees to go climb. There's. Hey, you want to cut some bark or chop it? Like they safety is just you're going to learn the hard way. Like you're going to
Hopefully
go
my
ahead and hurt
childhood.
yourself. You better figure it out because then we're going to
Around,
take
you're gonna
a spot
find
when
out.
your mom and dad might put boots to asses. Just saying, you might want to like think through what you're going to do next. Climbing trees, not a big deal. Like the fact that they got rid of the aluminum, steel, whatever slide that we had when we were kids, where
Yeah,
you
because it
get
would
out, that thing
burn
was
them.
hot and would literally burn through any pants you were wearing or any shorts, and it slap some Crisco on it and just slide all the way down and fly off. Like the fact that they got rid of those for safety, screw that. You know how many times I used to go on those things? Or the merry-go-rounds that you literally used to go on, like, all right, hold
Oh
on to
my
me.
god, the danger.
And you're sitting there, you're just,
Danger
all right,
traps.
go, go. But that's like, to me, when I look at everything we do in life, when I look at the next generation that's going to come up in cybersecurity, I think we've played it safe because they're not willing to take the risk.
Oh,
We
they're
have
not
become
willing to be wrong, a lot of them. They're afraid to
well
be
that, and
wrong,
we've
and
become
that
so
means you never
risk
learn.
adverse, so risk adverse, where it's like, well, we can't. That's new. We don't want, but oh my god, we can we test it first? I've had CrowdStrike for like 20 years now. They've never failed me. But we have this now. You might want to look. Look, I get a 15% discount. I don't care. Like that's what I think we're gonna end up with. And it's gonna take something happening where people are like, we're finally CrowdStrike just shits the bed because it can't stop anything that has AI. Like,
Except that one Friday in July, this year.
hey, it is a Friday, and here in America, it's Veterans Day weekend, Eliza May. You never know.
Oh,
It may hit us on the holiday. You just might get a blue screen. McAfee's done it. Norton's done it.
I
CrowdStrike's now
mean,
done
you have
it.
a 3-day
You
weekend
know?
then, right?
Yeah.
Like,
But
too
yeah,
funny.
I just look at it. I look at what we've done. I look at what we've raised. And to your point with AI, it's the iPad generation that Chat GPT came out. Half of them are using it to write papers.
Yeah,
Like,
and I have a friend that's a teacher, and she said that they literally have to go through and like run papers through. Um, they have to scrub out students' names, but then they have to run them through like some generator, like some type of tool that they have to verify that Chat GPT wasn't actually used to write papers. And a lot of times they find that it is in some way, shape, or form. It will be very interesting to see like how do you cite that? Like you can't just don't be sit out there trying to do a research paper citing Chat GPT, man. You need actual sources. Come
I
on.
asked, they're going to change. They're going to change the way you cite things, and you're going to have to put in the exact question you asked Chat
The prompt. Give me
GPT
the prompt
to
you
get
asked
the
ChatGPT.
source. Give me your AI source so that we can do this. It's going to be
Give me
part of
your
what I
ChatGPT
do,
prompt.
right? Oh,
That's
oh,
exactly it. Imagine that. Imagine passing a medical degree with
that
AI and then
that is
becoming
what
a
scares me,
surgeon and
Eliza.
having
So
no clue.
one of the biggest jokes that I make about degrees is C's get the degrees, and a doctor that graduates with a C is still called a doctor. You never know. But uh, whether it be cybersecurity, doctors, lawyers, what have you, it does not matter. Paper champions are paper champions. And unfortunately, in the healthcare industry, it'll cost you someone's life. In cybersecurity,
It'll cost reputation. It does the
it'll
same.
cost a company
But
and you reputation. Thankfully, we are still small enough in the cybersecurity field where if you're a paper tiger, you're going to be found out, and we're going to blackball you across the industry. Like, unless you start changing your ways and making strides to improve where you're at. If somebody throws down that, oh yeah, I got all these, and they're connected to me on LinkedIn, I legitimately get asked about those. Like, people will reach out to me and be like, hey, you're connected to this person on LinkedIn. Do you know them? And it's like, no. Sometimes. But, like, I look at it and I'm like, I added them. I'm not connected them. I don't know them. Okay. But, like, those things happen. So if you're going to be a paper tiger, if you're going to go out and search chase, that's fine. Just have either the experience or actual knowledge behind how to do these things.
Yeah.
Like, but when it comes to coding, look at how many people made their career off of Stack Overflow. Like, Stack Overflow got big. It
I
became what it
mean, they've
was.
helped me fix some scripts before. I won't even
Yo,
lie.
they've helped me. I've literally looked up. I've
But
written
that's
like,
a resource. Here's the thing: is like whenever I was doing scripting or something, or I was learning something new, I would at least go with what I had to begin with. I would then, go through and like rip out anything that was like identifying my company or our shared drives or whatever it was that I was doing, trying to automate out. Scrub out all the company information and then go post that on Stack Overdrive and see what people thought. That way I was getting opinions and pointed in the right direction. And there were a couple times where people were just giving me their code, but that's not what I was looking for. I was looking for, okay, what could I do here to make this better? How do I make this better? And learning that way. So for me, I always look at like resource, like communities like that as a resource of like, how do I get better at doing this?
and like, I am very, when I try to read up like what certain things do, and whether it be Python or even Azure, like Microsoft documentation is trash, and it's always behind anyways. So like when you're trying to read documentation on things, sometimes I read it, I'm like, I don't even understand what you're trying to fucking say here. Like, I've done this, it doesn't work this way. So it's either outdated or I'm just misunderstanding something. So like for me, if I'm like, hey, and I do it with Excel, I do it with Python, I do it with everything. I am trying to accomplish X, Y, and Z.
Yep.
What do I need to do? And people put in there, and they'll put generalizations. They're like, okay, so you want to use this for this, and then you bring it down, and it's an if statement, and else da 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 da, and you're like, okay, and you try it, you're like, well, it didn't work that way. Where did it break? But at that point, if you actually know what you're doing, you can go back and fix it. Paper champions can't fix it. They're gonna look at it and they're gonna be like, oh, it broke. It don't know.
Yeah, please fix for me. Please
Like,
visit.
they will literally go back to Stack Overflow and be like, "Hey, this didn't work. Um, what's your next guess? How about you look at the error, because it's one of those things. It worked on my machine. Like, when it comes to stuff like that, that's really all I can tell you is it worked on mine. I'm not going to change it if it worked. Find the error yourself. Maybe you're missing an import. Maybe you're missing something else. Maybe you have the wrong function. I don't know. But
I
more than
mean, if you're
likely, you get
running
caught in
Microsoft,
God's
you could
law.
just be running the wrong version of Microsoft.
You never know, right? Like, and it's funny because Defender, when you're dealing with Microsoft and you're especially Defender, and it's like, hey, this failed to install. Oh, well, do you have the most updated platform? Bitch, I just installed it. Oh, no, no, no. You need to actually install the update before you do this. And then you have to do that. Dude, I literally clicked the MSI file. What do you mean? And you're like, oh, no, you can't. So you got to do that. But then there's like 5 other steps. Like, dude, oh, I'm going to smack somebody. And they're like, oh, no. Oh, nay, nay. Hey, do you have all the KBs? I don't fucking know, my guy. Like,
Yep. All those dependencies. Have you installed all these KBs?
yeah. And I'm like, my guy, I don't know.
Back in the day. That was before they came out with their new updating method, which is a lot nicer, where you just get like all of them at once.
Yeah, right. But that you have to be actually, if you're using Macom or something like that, which, by the way, side note, sidebar, Microsoft, quit changing your fucking names. All right. SCCM was perfectly fine. You did not need to change it to Microsoft's whatever Mecum. No. SCCM. Just like Azure Active Directory was great. Oh, nay, nay. Now it's Entra
Entra
ID.
ID.
No. Quit changing shit. If it does the same job, give it the same damn name.
They get bored and they're like, let's just create a new name. Let's just call it something.
Like,
Or it
hey,
gets bad
we
press one
updated it,
day.
right? It's like, hey, this got a minor version update, so we're going to change
Let's
the name.
rebrand. Let's rebrand the whole thing.
And then they don't update the documentation behind it. So you go in there and it's
Tell
like,
me
hey,
about
go
it.
to Azure Security Center. You mean Defender XDR? Oh, no. We mean Azure Security Center. I'm going to smack somebody. I'm literally going to smack somebody. It worked on my machine fix is to use Docker. No, I hate Docker. Docker is vulnerable too. I've broken out of a lot of Docker machines in my time. Those require more security measures than Azure. Microsoft marketing on a power trip with that one. Oh, it is. It so is. So, all right, Eliza. It's funny because this is how I view Microsoft, right? So Microsoft is the equivalent of like when these marketing teams come out and they're like, hey, we're going to have AI. So AI is the next big thing, right? So every single flipping EDR company, before it was an EDR and it was just AV, it was, hey, this is Norton Antivirus with AI. What? What? Hey, this is McAfee. Hey, with this kid. Bitch, shut up. Quit throwing marketing terms at me. You don't have
Well,
AI.
and then they went from EDR to XDR. What are you talking about? That's a whole different tool now.
Dude, XDR is a freaking SIM. It's a
I know.
SIM.
That's what I mean.
When they did that, everybody's like, oh, it's XDR.
Branding the
Oh,
same fucking term.
I'm like, there's got to be a difference here, right? Let me see what
Yeah,
this
I
extended
thought the
detection
same
response is.
thing. Look it
No,
up.
no, it's
The same
legitimately the
thing.
exact same thing. Only the difference between an XDR and a SIM, this is legitimately the only difference. An XDR is when the SIM is coupled with that exact same company's EDR. And a SIM, I hope I said that right. So XDR has a coupling EDR. A SIM works with flocking everything.
Yeah.
It's not regulated to just a single EDR. That's legitimately the only difference. Logarithm, SIM, works with everything.
Yeah.
Defender XDR, you need to have Defender for Endpoint or Defender for Server. Which
And that's how you control.
and
Yeah.
hey, you can't install them both the same way either. Just
Never.
for awareness, like you can't use Defender for Cloud or Intune to just push everything out. Oh no,
Yeah.
no.
You
You
have to
got
pray to
Defender
the
for
IT
Server,
gods.
and if you have a Windows 10 operating system that for some reason Defender for Cloud picks up, it's gonna fail that install. And it's gonna be like, hey, I can't do this. Bitch, it's Windows. Install it.
Why you gotta be like this?
Dude, I get clients. Hey, the MDE extension failed on this computer, on this system. Oh, let me go see why. Oh, because it's Windows 10 Enterprise, not Defender for Server. Like, so then I keep getting pinged on the one system, this Windows 10, not Windows Server. Fuck out of here. Microsoft aggravates me. I'm sorry.
I mean, I think that we all love to hate Microsoft, but at the same time, we still will deal with it when we have to, right?
Look, if I had an option to work for a company that solely used Mac and Linux, and even Mac is stretching it because it's commercialized and they're going way off the rails, I would choose a company that was solely Linux. I really would. Just that's just me. But we don't have.
But that's not gonna come across very often, right?
I don't think I've ever seen it. I'm just saying. So do kids benefit more from tech ed schools or Waldorf schools? And don't say both.
The
So
Waldorf schools being like the richy rich private schools.
hey, yeah, AI, explain what's the difference before I give you an answer or not.
Yeah, if we can't say both, then
I need to know what's the difference between what is a Waldorf school? Tech ed kind of makes sense to me, but Waldorf I don't know. So give
So
me
it
an
reminds me of like Gossip Girl. Honestly, Waldorf. I'm sorry. I've been watching Gossip Girl again at night to fall
come on.
asleep.
Big Bang Theory's where it's at. Like seriously.
But I've watched that so many
So
times
am
and
I.
I
I go to sleep listening
always
to it
get
all the
wrapped into
time.
it. So it's not good to fall asleep to.
Waldorf, let's see. Waldorf schools is those that teach outside. Ooh. Okay. Like in the
Like the
woods.
Bat Kids School.
So it would be I get what he's saying. So a tech ed school would be more modern day schooling where it's like you're learning computers and technology and da 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 da. Da. A Waldorf school would be more you're learning nature and living off the land and outside and being more in tune with like what life really is or should be rather in my opinion. So that's what he's asking. Okay, okay.
Mm.
Nat, you go ahead. I'm gonna let you go rant, girl. You figure it out and let me know.
Well, thanks. So I'm going to say that you generalize the word kids too much to really give an answer that isn't both. And I'm going to explain why. It's like some kids would really benefit more from the tech ed type of learning. And then you have others that would benefit more from the outdoor type of schooling. So you really just have to figure out what kind of education you want your child to have. In my opinion, that would be if I was a parent, that's what I would be doing is figuring out who is my kid and how do they learn best and how am I going to be able to help them learn at the speed that they need to learn at and the things that they need to learn to be successful in life for whatever path in life they choose. Like um, for instance, my brothers never went to college. They went off right off to the army. I went off to the army too, but then I went back to college, to a technical school, which both of my brothers would have probably ended up going to like 4-year universities had they gone to college. For me, being ADHD, knowing that I need something that's actually going to like give me a hands-on activity, I'm not just reading a book all day every day. I knew that a technical school would be a better fit for me. So like even like if you have like an idea of like your child, you have multiple kids, just because one of them might benefit in one learning manner or in one learning situation better, another one might benefit in another way. So that would be my answer. It's still both, but it just depends on the kid. It's that's at stake here.
And see that's how I feel about it. Is it it depends on the parents and the kids. Let's be honest here because the parents if they're not tech savvy, the kids aren't going to be introduced to tech. They're going to be more inclined to be outdoors, be wherever. And so I think appreciate you, Eliza. Love you. You're amazing. Um, so and me personally, I wish I would have raised my kids more outdoors because I think technology, especially the way social media and things like that are today, when you introduce it too young, when you don't set those limits, when you don't really parent your kids and you allow technology to parent them for you, it really takes you away from everything. Um, but with a tech ed school, you learn how to make money and do things in modern society. So I think not only does it come down to the individual child, it really comes down to the individual household because both is never going to work, right? You can't say both in that context of like, oh yeah, both schools are great. I can't send a kid that was raised outdoors, send him to a tech ed school and expect him to excel. Just like I can't take a kid that was raised in tech ed and expect them to excel at a Waldorf school. And AI even said, Waldorf schools do projects like build a greenhouse to teach fractions and by cutting wood and figuring out the area of a garden bed. Those are the best. Like, in my opinion, I'm not going to say it's the best for everybody, but it's how I wish I would have taught my kids. Like, it's how I wish my kids would have been taught versus being around all the technology. Unfortunately, I fell in love with computers and IT and cybersecurity and was like, oh, yeah, kids, here you go. Have fun. No, should not have done that. Hey, Eliza, we love you too. One of these days, I'm gonna get over there. I'm actually gonna get a passport and go over there. But if you're ever in the U.S. and NPA, hit me up. We'll chat. Even if you're not in PA, maybe I could just fly out to wherever you're at. But if you're ever in the U.S., let me know. I also got to see JJ Davy over in across the pond. So uh, we're gonna have to make that happen. Let's see. Depends on the teaching. Does the outdoor school teach highly critical thinking in its curriculum? Yes, I'll stand on that. Yeah, because you have to.
Yeah, it's
Beyond,
like survival skills, right? Like,
yeah, like right, like so beyond just knowing and understanding math from a carpentry and flower bed and what Infinite AI was saying, it is you have to think things through. Like you have to really understand not only what you're building but why. And I think that's what we're missing a lot of is the why things are
the
the way they
purpose behind it.
are. So it's, oh, you're going to build a greenhouse. Well, why am I doing this? Well, because we're going to grow vegetables. We're going to grow X, Y, and Z. Or the alternative to that is you tell me, what can a greenhouse do for you? What are the benefits of knowing how to do this? And some kids will be like, oh, well, let me go home and talk to my parents and I'll come back to you. Or let me open a book and, research it. Others will be like, I don't know. You tell me. So, but this gets into a conversation I had with my son earlier today because we were talking about drama on social media. And
Oh, that's so good.
I was talking about how, with the election and the way things went, all these companies are no longer going to be posting and promoting ads on social media. And that's like great because I hate ads anyways. So less I have to see, no big deal for me, whatever. And it was for Twitter. And he was like, I hate Twitter. It's all drama and this, that, and the third. I said, here's the thing though, son. You're going to see that everywhere. Humans inherently, for one reason or another, and it's not all humans, but a lot of them, need drama in their lives. Even if it's not in their life, they need
Entertainment
it
for
in
them.
their life. And I have found this, and it's not necessarily like, hey, in my family or this at the third, I want to see drama. It's because it's not in my life, I'm either going to start it in somebody else's life, or I want to watch it somewhere else, and that's just not me. Like I have literally left, and it's only when you get groups together, collectives. So like the Norse pagans that I used to talk to all the time, they start anytime something jumped off and somebody said something wrong. Oh, we have X, Y, and Z, and X, Y, and Z, and X, Y. Oh my goodness, shut up! I'm not getting pulled into this. You see it in computers. Oh, Linux is the best operating system. That's an that's an opinion. It's not a fact. That is an opinion, and you're allowed to have your opinion, just like somebody who games like Microsoft, somebody who, for whatever reason, wants to spend $2,500 on a laptop might like Mac. Whatever the reason is, it's still an opinion. All operating systems are different and have different purposes. So I was telling him, I was like, people are taking opinion as fact and starting fights and arguments over it.
Yep.
That's where the drama lies. I said, and you find it in every single community, and it's because it's innate in human nature.
Yep.
Somebody has to be angry, or their opinion has to be right, even though it's just an opinion.
Yeah, the biggest thing, especially after an election, is like there's so many people that are like
This
posting
is the
their
best.
thoughts about it online, and it's
Eliza,
just like,
Linux is the best.
guys,
I will agree
does
with
it
that.
matter?
Let's see. We're losing our innate skills. Young people are growing to reject instincts, and if the apocalypse happens tomorrow, they won't be able to Google it. They will have to know how to live like a human animal.
That's how
Spot
you
on.
cripple society. That's how you cripple society.
Spot on.
Take away the internet, and we would be coming to a crippling halt for
let's
some of
let's
it.
let's
Some
be
of them
fair. If the power grid, let's
went
talk
down. Yeah,
anywhere. If the power grid went down in any country for more than a week, because let's be honest, in the U.S. it's gone out between storms and things like that. I think a week at the most. Um, people wouldn't know what to do with themselves.
I don't even think it would take a week. I think that, like, if it went out across the entire country for 3 days, we
Oh, if
would
it went
not know how
out
to
across the,
function.
if it was an entire,
Oh,
if it
yeah,
was a
across
country
the
wide
whole
blackout,
country. Yeah.
that shit,
Like, 2 days,
give it
we'd be in
12 hours.
apocalypse mode.
Fuck that.
Everybody
Give
be
it 12
looting.
hours. We saw what happened when people were like, I need to buy all the toilet paper and paper towels and bleach.
It
It's
wouldn't even get
what?
dark and there'd be looting going on.
But yeah, like, it's crazy because I think people forget. Oh, Eliza, yeah, we did too. We did
Yeah.
too. I know where you're going with that. We did too. So you're not alone. We sold out of it all. Although my favorite with that, in that same vein, was the person that bought as that was ending, um, something like several thousand bottles of hand sanitizer, I think it was, and then thought he was going to sell it and make a profit, and then couldn't because it ended, and it life just began, and people restocked, and they were like, "What am I going to? You made me spend it." No, no one made you
No
do
one did
anything.
that. You did that to
You
yourself
were
with
the
price
idiot.
gouge, people. It
Was
was
it Diddy?
definitely Diddy. It was definitely Diddy.
I love you, Eliza. You were awesome. Um, all right.
Okay,
So, look, all right,
sorry.
we need to get back to some cybersecurity questions real quick. We got 4 minutes left. I have a situation with me currently at the moment. It seems like some HR or recruiters don't know anything about cybersecurity. Screwed up my chances saying that that ops you are not experienced enough. I remember all that. Eliza, don't worry, we'll get back to you. Um, will you get pissed off if you or me? Mm. So, Nat, answer first if you had this situation occur, because I have my own feelings on it, and it may differ a little bit.
I'd want more information just from the actual the way it is phrased. No offense, it just kind of seems very heated. So I'd want more details as to, like, what makes you think that this HR recruiter didn't know anything about cybersecurity. Because, like, the recruiters that I've dealt with 9 times out of 10 that knew nothing about cybersecurity, they're not the ones that are going to have that overall say. It's the actual hiring manager, even if you're going through a recruiting agency. So it's who you interviewed with that didn't like you, or it could be that maybe they were looking for something and the culture fit side of things and you didn't quite meet where they were at, so they said, like, hey, I just don't think you have enough experience at this point, because they were looking for something that you weren't able to offer in whatever answers you were able to give them at the time.
So, as a hiring manager and as someone who was in the job hunt prior to um, 2007, no, 2018, I had a lot of conversations with recruiters, a lot of conversations with HR. And prior to me becoming an actual hiring manager, I always thought it was HR, it was the recruiter, it was whomever. Because I would have conversations with recruiters and HR and things like that, where they're like, "Oh, do you have a G? Are you GX certified? Which one?
What certification?
Which one?" And they're like, "Well, GX. No, 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 no. Oh, nay, nay. Which one? There's GSEC, GCED, GCIH. GPYC. Graham, which
Narrow it
one are you
down.
looking for?" And they're like, "GX, you can't do that." I'm like, "Well, no, you can't do that." And so then I had conversations with these recruiters, which they would then take back to the hiring manager. They knew I wasn't going to get the job, or I wasn't going to take it. Like, they knew it was either below me or above me, one of the two. So it just became a conversation for me to educate them on what they should actually be looking for, that they could then take back to the hiring manager. Because here's the thing. As a hiring manager, my recruiters come to me and say, "Hey, what questions should I be asking? What do you need to know before they get to you?" Because I always do the initial interview from the company perspective. Even our recruiters that are from the company, they just do, "Hey, is it worth them looking at this resume?" So for me, there are going to be, depending on the job, certain trigger points. So if I say I need someone that has been working with Microsoft Sentinel for 5 years, know it in and out, and has been an engineer on it for at least two, um, then they'll go in, they'll ask those questions. Now, sometimes they get confused 'cause somebody will say Sentinel 1. I'm like, it's different. We can't know. Two different products, my guy. Sentinel and Sentinel 1 aren't the same. Um, so as a hiring manager, I have those conversations with our recruiters because, again, where I work, our recruiters work for our parent company, and so I just talk to them, and they're like, "Hey, what are you looking for, and what should I be asking before I send their resume over to you?" And I'm like, "Oh, this, and this." And they're like, "Okay, cool." So depends on the company. To be honest, I just I think that I wouldn't get mad. I usually use it as a learning opportunity for them. That's just
Well,
it.
and if anything, maybe that company did you a favor because maybe it's just not worth it if they can't see what the value you bring to the table as is, like, then they don't deserve to work with you. Like, they don't deserve what you bring to the table. So,
Yeah,
like, maybe it's saving you down the road too.
and that's how I look at things, right? And I think that me and you've had that conversation where it's like, actually, I think I've had it with quite a few people where people are like, "Oh, I didn't get hired because of X, Y, and Z," right? Whether it be experience, race, gender, it doesn't matter. This is why I didn't get hired. Then why would you want to work
Yeah.
there? If they didn't hire you for some obscure reason, whether it be religious beliefs, race, gender, or you're not the fucking unicorn that they're looking for, then you didn't want to be there in the first place because they're trying to hire a senior engineer at the price of a junior, which is
Yep.
why it's out there as a junior with senior requirements.
Yep.
This is
Which is
why.
why they don't know what they need and why their
Like,
questions are fucking weird.
so people need to understand that aspect of it. Um, And then I heard of a cybersecurity agent with 30 years of experience get rejected for not enough experience for a SOC job. He was trying to prove the cybersecurity recruiting process is broken. Um, Again, is it broken? Technically, yes, but also no. In that situation and on that story, I took a job. I interviewed before I went active duty Army. I was in the Air National Guard, but I had a kid on the way. I knew I was going active duty. Already signed my contract. Actually, I had already had my kid, and had a second one on the way. Already signed my contract. Knew when I was leaving. I was just looking for money to come in to help pay for things in the interim. And so I took a contract gig, and the lady literally looked at me. She wasn't going to hire me. She was like, "You're overqualified. Like, legitimately, you're overqualified." Had it not been a contract job where I can convince her, like, "Hey, I'm leaving. I just need this so I can get by for the next 2 months," I would have been hired. If it was an FTE job, they would have looked at me and be like, "Hell no. Like, you're overqualified and you're going to ask for way more money than we can pay you." No. I think in that instance of SOC jobs, 30 years experience, um, I'm sorry. No, you're not
You
going.
can't grow. What growth potential do you have in this position? And that's
Yeah.
really, as a hiring manager, what I'd be looking at is like I can only like you're gonna get bored in this position after a while
Mhm.
if I do hire you. I don't care if this was like just like him trying to prove that the recruiting process was broken or whatnot, but like if you have 30 years of experience and you're trying to come in at a mid-tier role or even like anything above like below a senior role,
Yeah.
then what room for growth do you have? What's going to keep you
And
from leaving our company just like you left the last one?
and me, I look at it as, what are you trying to prove?
Yeah.
What are you trying to prove? And again, this comes from a military mindset also. Let's be fair. As a veteran, as military, I look at things and I'm like, you either have a lack of discipline or you're something is off here, and I don't trust you. So when I see that type of stuff, I'm just kind of like, deuces.
Yeah, that's
Um,
so realistic there. We want a person with senior experience with the need to work, willing to work for wage of an intern.
right.
It's how it's always that's
And say
been unfortunately.
overqualified, don't say not enough experience. You're not wrong in that regard, AI. I just think it becomes HR sends out, and this is what people need to understand. They're generic emails or whatever to go out. They are literally not qualified. It doesn't say overqualified, underqualified, whatever. It literally just says not enough experience. They're not expecting when they send these freaking basically marketing blanket emails out to have to customize it. That's on the hiring manager to reach out and say why. That legitimately is. I've had people
And
reach
some
out.
companies just refuse to do that just because of legal reasons, like legal
Yeah,
liability. If they, said the wrong thing as a reason, then that could cause, a lawsuit to happen. So,
yeah. So, but otherwise, it is 8:06, well over the top of the hour. Natalie, you know the deal. Give some advice to newcomers trying to break into the industry, especially veterans. It is Veterans Day weekend. As a fellow veteran, give your final thoughts.
all right. So my final thoughts would be when you're trying to break in, use any avenue that you can, use what you have available. So don't be afraid to tell somebody like, "Hey, I am a veteran," or like let them know, or show it on your resume somehow. But don't expect that to get you more than just a foot in the door. If you are a vet, normally the reason they want to hire you as a vet is because you're willing to put in the work, you're willing to work hard, and you're willing to put your money where your mouth is, basically, and have the action behind the words that you speak. So generally that's what they're looking for. They're looking for that kind of leadership, that natural leadership in there. So you have to be willing to actually do those things. And if you get in there and you get to learn, take as many learning opportunities as you can from your first couple of roles, and then from there, I mean, um, from there, I guess I would just say, like, don't continue to rely. I don't personally like to heavily rely on the fact that I'm a vet to get me the land jobs, because I want to know that I got the job because I'm the right fit for that job. So that's just personally my kind of sense of it. As I've gotten up in the field, I've noticed that, like, yeah, sometimes it's like, hey, cool, you're a vet, I'm a vet, we can bond over that. But like, really, that's most people don't even know that I'm a vet. Like, I had one of my founders reach out to me. He's like, "I didn't know you were in the military." And I was like, "Dude, it's on my resume." Like, so, yeah, make sure that, you're willing to work hard. You're willing to do the things that, because that's why recruiters, or that's why people are willing to take the chance on you as a vet, is they know that you're not afraid to actually put your money where your mouth is and step up and do the work.
Yeah, and so you know,
I am a Rambo, though, Eliza. I am a Rambo.
you're airborne. I'm a leg, and I'm proud of it.
I was
Um,
chairborne.
but no, so being a veteran can end up one of two ways. There are companies out there that want to almost primarily hire veterans for that purpose, for the leadership, the discipline, the what they bring to the table. Then there's companies that don't want to hire veterans at all. They say they don't care, but in reality, there is still a stigma behind it, especially if you were deployed. The PTSD, you can't be here. This, that, that. I'm always hesitant, and I have been for years. Even with the jobs that I've had, do you have any disability? Do you have da 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 da? And I'm like, mm, I can make do. No, no, I don't. No, I don't. Look, my legs do not still work. I was telling Natalie before the show. Next year,
Right.
I'm having surgery on both my knees. Um,
We call
now
him
one of
Captain
them from the
Man.
army, the other one's because of me. But that's besides the point. But no, I just so it can work both ways. Being a veteran can work in your advantage or disadvantage. But again, to your point, Natalie, even when it works to your advantage, it only gets you in the door. It only gets you that initial conversation to push you forward. You still have to sell yourself. So for me, just like almost every other week that I've done this show, my final words to everybody trying to break into the industry, whether you're a veteran or not, you have to also be your best salesperson. flat out. You have to sell yourself on LinkedIn or on your resume or on your interviews, whatever. Wherever you are putting your name out there, you have to sell yourself for who you are, what you can do, and what you're capable of. If you're not able to do that, then you're not going to make it far. You might get that initial job, but going further than that, if you can't continue to sell yourself and your capabilities, sorry, homie, you're stuck, and you're going to stay that way. Because until I can see that you're capable and you're willing to speak up for yourself and advocate for yourself, because your career is yours. No one can advocate for you. No one can stick up for you. It's on you. You got to put in the work. You got to put in the effort. Without that, I'm sorry, but I can't give you a handout. You need to earn it. Everything in life is earned. Otherwise, as always, I love you all. You're all my warriors and you're all my family. This has been another amazing episode. Security Happy Hour. For all those that tuned in live, take care, and I'll see you next week. For all those watching on replay, don't forget, tips are always appreciated, as is everything else on the story you've been seeing at Scroll All Night. And I will talk to you all next week for another amazing episode of Security Happy Hour. Take care.